Open Source Advocate, and I am back with another video. And today we're going to talk about some really great hardware. So Ugreen reached out to me. They reached out to a bunch of creators, and they wanted us to do some videos about their new storage system. If you're familiar with Ugreen, you'll know that they make mostly connectors and different devices like that. They're kind of branching out into this storage area, and it's a new thing for them. I really wanted to see what they were doing and how they were doing it, and they were willing to send me out a kit. My agreement with Ugreen says that I can keep the hardware after the video is done if I like it. I never publish a video about hardware that I don't like because I don't want you guys to be watching a video about hardware that I don't like in the first place. I want to make sure that I'm telling you about hardware that runs open source software because I'm the open source advocate. I want to make sure that you're getting hardware that is worth having. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to unbox it, show you what comes in the box, show you what you can do with the actual software that's built into this, which is running Linux, and it's open source software, which is great. And I'm going to show you what you can use it for as far as NAS storage. And I'm going to give you some of the pros and cons, but I think any of the cons we come across are things that Ugreen is going to fix going forward. So get ready. We're going to get into it right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really, truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. I'm going to start unboxing this stuff real quick. Ugreen sent me some really great stuff here. I appreciate it. I want to let them know that I appreciate that as well. All of the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone. Ugreen has not been able to see the video before I published it. And as I said before, if I didn't like anything here, I wouldn't have published the video to start with. It's just not something I want to do for you guys. All right, we're going to open up this box. I've got two of these boxes, and they sent me out some nice 4 terabyte hard drives. So they sent me actually four 4 terabyte hard drives here. Second box has the same thing in it. I haven't even undone the tape yet. Oh yeah, I have. It's right here. If I turn it the right way. So we've got 4 terabyte hard drives. And then of course the main box here. This comes in a really nice box. It's pretty easy to open in general. The lid just lifts up usually. Oh no, it's got tape. I'd peeled back the tape. And when you open all of this up, it opens up pretty nicely here. They've got some nice foam around the actual hardware itself, which is great. On one side, you've got your kit with some of your plugs and hardware, I'm sure. So when you open this up, you've got an instruction manual. And we've probably got a little bit more stuff here, just a separator. And yes, we've got basically more instructions, and we've got some Ethernet cable, which is great, power cord and power brick, and a tool for actually taking things apart if we need to, which is awesome. And they've got, looks like something else here. So these look like a couple of cooling pads that they send, you know, for things like when you're putting in NVMe drives and things like that. So we'll have to kind of see what those are going to be for. There's a pretty good size piece of equipment here that I'm about to lift out. This is probably the bigger, heavier part of the equipment itself. Yeah, so if you're thinking that this is just a 4-drive bay, it is not. This has actually got everything built in. It's actually got a compute module built into it that lets it function as a network attached storage device. So when we turn this thing, you can see there's 4 bays on the front that'll be filled up with those hard drives they sent. In the back, you've got a pretty nice fan cover here. And then you've got some I/O stuff here as well. This little fan cover is magnetic. It's got a little piece of cardboard on it, in fact, that will take off. But you can see the fan there. It's a pretty good sized fan. But it does just stick in place to help keep it covered up. So you've got your HDMI port over here. You've got USB, a couple of USB 3s, 2 Ethernet ports, and then your power port, of course, to help out with getting power into the system. It does have these 4 little rubber feet, which is nice. That's going to get it just up off the desk, just enough to let some air go under it, but also to kind of keep it quiet. Those rubber feet will help with any kind of vibration to keep it a little bit less noisy, which is great as well. On the front, we also have a USB, a USB-C, and what looks like a spot for an SD card of some kind. Here, when you look at the actual drive bays themselves, you'll see this little thing here at the bottom, and it's kind of a locked or unlocked option. So if you rotate it upwards, where it was vertical, it would be locked. Currently, they are all in an unlocked position, but they do have a drive number slot on them, which is nice, keeps you from getting them confused and mixed up. And then you're going to have indicator lights and, of course, the power button to turn the system on and off. So pretty great so far. When you click on that, you see that this lifts up. So again, I just push where the lock is. It opens this up, and then you use that to pull the tray out. This is one of the 4 terabyte drives that they sent me here. It's just a regular SATA drive, and it is a Western Digital Red. So it's really kind of a server or NAS class drive as far as I understand from those. Putting them into these enclosures isn't really difficult. On the bottom of the enclosure, there's a little lever right here. And if you just push that, it allows the enclosure to expand open, which is really great. And then you can take your drive, slip it into place here. And then inside, they've got some little pegs that go right into the pre-built holes on the actual hard drive itself. And when you push it together, it just clicks into place. And when you're ready, you just take that drive, you're going to slide it right back into the enclosure, push it back, you'll feel it seat into the SATA ports, and then you can click the handle closed. Pretty simple, really great actually, having dealt with several of these drive enclosure bays that I've been using for some of my Homelab setup recently. That was a really easy setup, and I really like the way that they built the expansion for that drive bay enclosure and the way that it closes and clicks down on it. I'm going to get the rest of these drives put into this system, and then I'm going to go hook it up and get it set up so you can see the software and how that runs. So I booted this system. I thought I would get something out of the HDMI port in the back, but I didn't. So I started looking around my network, and I realized, hey, it's got an IP address. So I used Angry IP Scanner, something I've talked about in the past, to find the IP of the system, and it just pulled a DHCP address. And you can see here that it's got the device name. Looks like you can change that to whatever you want, but this is fine. It's identifiable, and the model is a DXP4800. So this is a 4-bay system, but it has its own web interface, as you can see right here. So we're going to go here and just kind of start setting this thing up. So it's got a little bit of a weirdness to it right off the bat. Hopefully they'll fix this here in the future, but it's got this where administrator is too long, and it wraps and it puts the R on the next line. So this is just a sizing and spacing issue, nothing major there. But we'll just create a user here. And I'll create a nice strong password. So it says register and bind the Ugreen account to get more convenient services. So you can get things like notification services, the UG Link service. So you can get basically an exclusive service that lets you link to your device from anywhere, so you can reach your NAS from anywhere. I think that's a great service, and it's a cool service that they offer, especially for people that are less technical. Personally, I would set up something like a VPN to be able to access this and have different devices from other places store data back to it. So they do support WeChat binding, so if you're in a country that uses WeChat pretty predominantly, you can use WeChat as your login as well. So they do have the option to go ahead and create that. You can use your mobile number, get a verification code, and then that'll create that link. I'm just going to skip it for now. So on the next page, you get an option to say, how do I want to install the updates? I'm going to increase the font on this a little bit for you guys that are on your mobile devices. You can see it. It's going to make things look a little funny just because I increased the size of it. So don't hold that against Ugreen. That's just me trying to make this easier for you to see on your screens. So it says registration is complete, but it gives us this option for system updates. And you've got this one that says only important updates. So they'll only install the things that are important, like security updates for the most part, and that's what they recommend. You can automatically have it install all the updates that come out for this device as well, for that and its apps. Or you can say notify me when there's updates, and then you can choose to run the updates when you want to. I know a lot of you would kind of prefer this one. It's that control thing. I almost want to do that too, but I do like to get my security updates. So I think this is probably the option I would go with. It's the recommended one from them as well. Share device analytics, this is always up to you as a user. I think when they're doing something like this, especially in the beginning, if you're going to be a kind of a starting out user, it's always good to do that, to say, yeah, you know, I do want to share back data with you because I want you to be able to improve the device. It kind of depends on you and what you feel is appropriate from their privacy statement. You can check out their privacy statement as well just to kind of see what they're asking for. I'm just going to click on next. So we've done it and we're still zoomed way in, so just understand that, but it says you finished installing the device and you just put I understand that. Okay, so I'm going to zoom it back out to 100% here, just so you can see what the user interface generally looks like. It's just a web user interface. I do believe they have some apps, probably for Mac or Windows. I think it just opens up an Electron version of this essentially, so just kind of up to you to decide whether or not that's something you want to see. But here we've got file access, the control panel, storage manager, the app center, log center, support, the task manager, and universal search. Now, I want to talk about App Center real quick, and if you go here, it'll ask you, hey, you know, do you agree to our App Center rules? Yes. Really, there's not a lot here. It's pretty much what I just showed you. Kind of up to you, but it hopefully will grow with more applications over time. We ran the update. I'm wondering, do they add any apps to their application center? Oh yeah, they've got a couple of extra things here. So you can now get Docker and install that, and then you can start installing things on top of Docker. That's pretty nice. So they've got kind of broken down into utilities. So pretty interesting list of things here that you can check out. They've got a text editor. They've got your system backup, which is pretty nice. Version manager, file manager. You've got DLNA for doing media and things like that. Universal search. Under system management, they still got the control panel, task manager, log viewer, and system manager. Under media, they've got photos. So this is probably just a pretty generic photos app, I'm guessing. But you know, that's fine. It's nothing that's a bad thing to have specifically. Again, when I use a NAS, it's really for backups and things like that. It's not something where I would do my photo management from it, but it's there and it's an option. Me personally, and I want to talk about this a little bit as being the open source advocate, I look at a NAS as specifically that. It should be a system that's really for storage and backups. So when I start thinking about a NAS, that's the place where I want to store my data and my backups. I run other systems, other servers to have all of my services running, and then I want to have the data from those things backed up to my NAS system. I want to have those applications and configurations backed up to my NAS system. I'm not a huge fan of having a NAS and then running a ton of apps on top of that NAS. And it's nothing that there's something wrong with it. It's just kind of my personal preference. So understand that as we go through this, that my goal is to kind of show you what this can be as far as a network attached storage system. I'm not looking to really kind of show you how to do apps or anything like that. And right now they don't have a ton of apps in their app store yet anyways. Again, I'm hopeful that they'll open it up for community submitted apps so that they can really grow that app store in a little bit faster fashion. Of course, it'll be up to you guys to vet those out and make sure that they're working and functioning the way that you want, that you trust the people who are making those apps. And hopefully Ugreen would have something in place that they can kind of go through and verify and validate some of those as well. I'm going to close that out. And you see we have the same options right here. So it doesn't really matter how you get to those things. They're all there. If you look over here in the upper right, you can kind of see some stats. It's kind of a mini stats, and that's a little hard to see on this screen, I'm sure. I'll zoom it up real quick. But you can see here you got CPU, what the RAM usage looks like. So right now it says CPU is 5%, RAM usage 25%. And you've got your upload and download, so 60 kilobytes a second, 2 kilobytes a second, so not much going on there. You've got a place for notifications. You've got your task center. You've got a search. And then, of course, you've got kind of your account and little user icon there. So I'm going to zoom this back out to 100% right there. And if we click on the task center, you can see there's really nothing going on there. If we click on notifications, there's a couple of things. So storage device kind of lets you know, like, hey, there's some stuff going on here. You can click to expand all the notifications and see them, and then you can minimize them again. Kind of very Mac-like, I guess, notification center is what I would call this. And then you can see some information here about system services as well. And of course, you can just kind of click into this a little bit more deeply if you want to see some more detail. So you've got a refresh option to say, like, hey, is there anything else I need to look at? You can click on one of these things If you double click, it gives you a little bit kind of a different window where you can see the details of it. Same thing here, so pretty clean, pretty easy to use, and then you can close that out when you're done. And then of course you've got the search that will let you search, and again this is very Spotlight-ish, so I guess Spotlight-like is the best way to put it. But if you do anything, if you're looking for storage, you're going to find the storage manager. Alright, let's take a look at the storage manager here. At this point I've set up nothing on these drives that I installed, so I did install all 4 of the 4 terabyte drives that Ugreen sent me. Again, I'm going to zoom this up for the folks on the mobile devices. I'll try to keep it where you can see it here a little bit. It does have kind of a size restriction. So it says at least 1 storage pool and storage space must be created to store data on the Ugreen cloud. It says please select the RAID type. And when we click down, so we've got RAID 10, RAID 6, RAID 5, which is their recommended one. So RAID 5 is going to be your striped RAID across the 4 different drives, and then it's going to have a parity drive, so you're not going to quite get 16 terabytes out of it, but you should get anywhere from 12 to 13, I would imagine. They've got RAID 1 and RAID 0. RAID 10 is going to give you a RAID 1 plus 0, which is going to mirror and then stripe across a couple of drives. RAID 6, I think you would want 5 drives for RAID 6. I don't think 4 drives would really do well for RAID 6. But knowing that we have 4 drives, it's recommending RAID 5. So that's the one I'm going to pick. It's going to give us the most storage space and still have the ability to lose a drive and recover from that by replacing it. And they tell you right here that if you choose this, you can lose 1 drive and you can still replace that drive and get your data back, which is what I just said. So if we were to choose RAID 6, it would tell you need to have the 4 hard drives from the storage pool. Storage capacity is going to be N-2 drive space. So you're basically getting 8 terabytes out of this, and it's going to use the other two drives for parity, so that if you lose those drives, you can replace them. If you happen to lose 2 at a time, you'll still be able to recover. RAID 5 gives you 3 of those drives of storage space, but you can only stand to lose 1 at a time. So we're going to select, it says at least 3 hard disks. We're actually going to select 4. I'm going to scroll this out just a little bit more so you guys can kind of see exactly what's going on here. So we've got all 4 disks. Now they're claiming to be 3.6 terabytes, which is fine. That's close enough to 4. We're just going to go ahead and click on next here. So this is telling me that these drives are not in their product compatibility list. And while I haven't checked their product compatibility list, they sent me these drives. They sent the drives for me to try with this system. So again, this could be a quirk. It just, who knows, but you might want to check their product compatibility list just to make sure you've got drives that they say are good. So it tells us right here we're going to get about 11 gigs or 11 terabytes and 132 gigabytes out of it. We can use BetterFS or we can use ext4. I'm going to stick with BetterFS. It's got some great features. It's got some snapshotting features. It's got some pretty good read-write speeds, things like that. So we'll just stick with it. And we're going to move forward. And then it's going to just give us a real quick kind of overview of what we're about to do. So I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. I don't think it's going to matter much. Let's get to 100% here. And it gives us an overview really quick of what it's going to do. It's going to create a single storage space. And we're just going to click next. And it's going to say format the hard disk. Are you sure you want to do this? And we're going to go ahead and tell it yes, you can delete the data from these disks. So when you do this, it's going to delete all of the data on your hard disks. It's important for you to know. And then password validation. It says please enter the password of the account Brian to continue. So this is just asking for like my approval as an admin. We'll put that in and hit confirm. And out of this, we can see now that we've got storage pool 1 has been created, and it also created storage space 1, which is 10.9 terabytes. So that's a pretty good size storage space. Pretty decent amount of storage to start with. Now, of course, you could replace these 4 terabyte drives with your own drives. I've got 4 12 terabyte drives that I could use. I've got 4 8 terabyte drives that I could use. So you could really use any of these. The biggest thing with RAID, as far as I recall, depending on what type of RAID they're using, if they're using ZFS, it's not quite as particular, but straight up RAID tends to want you to have the same type of drive, the same model, and the same capacity. and that makes the most out of the RAID system that you can. If you have different sizes or some drives, or if you have some 2 terabyte drives and some 4 terabyte drives, I think RAID will tend to default to the least amount of space for that RAID configuration. So just be aware of that. So since we used up all of the storage space for this one, we wouldn't be able to create any more storage pools or spaces with the drives we have. Now, because we used all 4 drives isn't really something that we have to worry about. We could use just 2 drives and do what they call a mirrored RAID, which means one drive mirrors itself to the other drive. You could also do 2 of those things and create 2 storage spaces and two storage pools and 2 storage spaces inside of those. You can create storage spaces inside of the pools that don't take up all of the space. If you click on the 3 dots over here, you have the option to see your space usage, file defragmentation, what kind of settings there are, so we can click on that. And you can see here, when do you want to get a warning? When it's got 10% of the space left, it'll warn you like, hey, you may be getting low on space. And then you've also got the option to delete this storage space. So let's delete the storage space. And again, you have to validate that you are an admin and have the ability to do this. So that's good that they've got that protection in place. So once we click, there it goes. It's deleted that storage space. So now we should be able to say create a storage space. It's going to ask us on what pool do we want to do this. And we can tell it, you know what, I don't want to do the 11 gigs. I want to do 4,000 gigs, which is 4 terabytes essentially. And again, better FS. We can click create, and we're going to have a storage pool 1 that should be 4 terabytes. There it is. Now we can click on create again to create a separate storage space inside that same pool, because we still have room for that. And there's a remaining 7 terabytes that we can use, so it's letting us know like, hey, you still got about 7 terabytes of space you can use. We could just say, you know what, I just need 5 terabytes of that space, and again, better FS. I'd like it if it would let us name the storage space. That would be kind of nice. It's just kind of call them storage space 1, storage space 2. We could extend it, so if it's not taking up the full space, you get this extend option, which lets you kind of grow that space. So let's see if we can grow our 4 terabyte space here. And it says new capacity in gigabytes, and it says maximum available is 2,000 gigabytes. So I don't know if it's saying how much do you want to add to your existing, or how much do you want for the total existing to be. Let's just see if it'll let us put in 6,000. It's going to tell us no, you can't do that. So it's actually saying how much space do you want to add to what's already there. So since we have 4,000, we're going to add 1,500, and we're going to click on add. And that should expand our storage space 1 from 4 terabytes, or a little under 4 terabytes. There we go, to 5.5 terabytes. So now we've got 5.5 terabytes of space and 5 terabytes of space, and we've got it split up pretty well where we could do things with different storage pools. So you've got a really great set of options for setting up these storage pools. Yeah, I mean, pretty cool. So if we go here and look at the individual hard disks, we can also see what's going on there. And then we can also look at external storage management. So you could hook up some external storage using USBs. That would be a really great way to allow you to do a little bit more with something like this, which is pretty awesome. And then managing that stuff through this setup would be great as well. Again, you've got some advanced settings. So you can set up ext4 delay configuration and USB storage devices. So you can say use is allowed or use is prohibited. Kind of up to you how you do that. So if we go back up to just the generalized storage setup, you get a nice overview of what's being set up. And then internally, there is some space for some M.2 drives that you can set up as well. I haven't done that. I haven't cracked it open. It's not something I want to do on this video specifically, but you do have the ability, and they do actually ship you a screwdriver with some different bits and screws so that you can get the system apart and actually extend it in that way, which is pretty awesome. I mean, just, yeah, really a completely cool setup. All right, before we actually go out and get anything set up with Samba or anything like that, we actually need to go into our control panel and we need to enable some of those features. So you do have some different settings you need to go through and kind of check out here. So under security, for instance, you've got some security settings and things like that that you should go through. We're going to go back here and we're going to go to the file service. And right here you can see we've got Samba, FTP, NFS, rsync, WebDAV, and advanced settings, and a lot of these are completely available on Windows, Mac, Linux. It doesn't matter what you set up. It's kind of up to you which one you want to set, but let's just set up Samba. So let's enable Samba. It's going to ask you for the work group name. If you're using Windows and you're on a work group that is not the default work group, you need to make sure you set that up. And if you need advanced settings, you can click here to get into that and make sure you set that up correctly. So again, with access, you can say you can hide this from people who shouldn't have permissions or don't have permissions to see these things. But we're just going to stick with the default settings for now. And then we've got some things here. I'm going to blow this up again for you guys and kind of move it over. But you can see here where it says how to use. So they say Windows Explorer access. You can enter this name as the ID to get it. Same with Mac and Mac Time Machine. If you're trying to do that kind of stuff, you can set these things up. So it's got some things down here that you can copy as well. We've enabled it. Let's zoom back out and make sure we click on apply here, so that it actually turns that feature on. It says operation was successful. Now that we've created our storage space, we want to go and actually look at our file management capabilities. So we're going to go up here to the file manager. It's going to open up and it's going to show you that, of course, I have nothing here yet. So I want to create a space to upload some things. So I'm going to say, let's create a new shared folder. And I'm just going to call this test folder 1. We could put that in a shared space 1 or 2, so it gives you a drop down of the different spaces you've created within the pools you've got. You can set a space storage limit, so if you don't want to have a folder that can get over maybe 10 gigabytes or something, you could set that. It's not something you have to do, but you definitely can. It says hide this folder in your shared network neighbors. I don't want to do that. I want to see if this will show up. And again, me using Linux in the background here, I really want to see if this is just going to show up on the network whenever I create it. So again, we're calling this test folder 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and say create. So you've got options here. So right now I've got read and write on both of these settings. Here it's got access prohibited, so you could just check that and you see it changes it to access prohibited. Here you can check read and write, which is already got. And then here it's a little bit off the screen, but you can scroll over and you can say just read only. And then you see it changes to read only for that user. So if you have multiple admin users, you can set who can read and write or read what folders or who's prohibited from which folders as well. So I'm going to set that back to read and write. And then I think from the general user side, there's test Bob. I don't want him to be able to read and write from my folder. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I'm going to click OK. And there it is. It created my test folder. So this should show up on my network. Let's go into the actual network tools for Fedora here and see if it'll see it. And I'm just going to click here, and you'll see it's already actually showed up for me here under the network settings. So I'm just going to click onto it, and you'll see it opens up and it shows me here's my test folder right here. And it's going to ask me for authentication because that's a folder that's owned by me that I did not share with other people. So I need to actually go ahead and say who I am and make sure that this device knows who I am. And I'm going to give it my password, and I can tell it just to remember me forever since this is my personal machine. And now I'm into my folder. So the next thing I'm sure you're wondering is, like, how fast is this thing going to be able to upload stuff? So let's move something, decently large. I don't know that I have anything specific on this machine, but let me open up another window here. And I'm going to go here actually to my Elements storage, and I've got some movies and TV shows, things like that are pretty large. I've got my video archive from 2024. This is a pretty good size archive. Let's just move that whole folder over. So let's just copy this guy, and we're going to copy, and we're just going to paste it over here. And we can kind of watch that progress here. And I think we can potentially even get some details. Yeah, there we go. So I have a 1 gig network connection. Both of these machines are wired, and right now I'm getting 34 megabytes per second. So it's doing okay. I mean, I've definitely saturated this before, just going from one machine to another with like 114 megabytes per second. So it's not doing the fastest move you've ever seen, but considering it's a copy and not just a straight up move or something like that, I think it's doing pretty well. rsync would be another way to do this, and it may go a bit faster. The thing about rsync especially is when you repeat that rsync, it's only going to move the things that have changed. It's not going to move everything. Whereas if I just do copy paste every time, it's going to move everything every time and ask me, do I want to overwrite or do I want to replace files, things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not doing terribly. It's going to take a little while because this is a pretty large amount of data. You can see here it's got about 45 minutes left. Again, this is going over a wired connection for both machines, so it's not Not super fast, but at the same time, it's a storage device for me. It's not something where it has to be super fast all the time. It's just something where if I have something catastrophic happen to the files that are on this drive that I'm moving it from, and I can recover those. So also, there could be a limitation because this is moving from an external hard drive that's USB and it's plugged into USB 3. So there could be a limitation there that's also jumping in and slowing it down more than if it was coming from the internal hard drive, for instance. I started moving this folder. It's a really big folder. I didn't want to wait for an hour for that to finish before I could keep doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you something a little bit better. So these are all the video files that are on my internal machine here. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to copy those and I'm just going to come over and paste them. And we'll kind of see how fast that moves across. Yeah, there we go. So with the internal drive and not being dependent on the USB, we're getting twice as fast. So about 51 megabytes going over to a Samba share. Again, the share type could have an effect on how fast it goes. If you set it up for rsync or for WebDAV or NFS, it could be faster than Samba. I don't know. I haven't checked a long time to see which one of those is faster. But keeping things simple, Samba was easy to set up and get going. So yeah, I mean, this is moving just fine. It's going to get these things backed up for me, and everything's going to be working without a problem. Now, part of it's moving it over. The other part is moving it back to the main machine or moving it to another machine on your network. And a lot of times that's the thing that people want to know, like, well, once I move them over there, is it easy to get it back? And it's going to be just as easy as copying them from here and just pasting them back over to the local machine drive as well. But we can kind of check that out once it's finished. I'll let those finish copying and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it takes to get them back over here. So in the meantime, I'm just going to take a little side break and look back here at the user interface, and we'll kind of go back into the control panel. We've got our network settings, and I talked about this a little bit earlier because it just picked up a DHCP address from my network. But for network attached storage and for something where you're running like a Samba server or any kind of server where it's NFS or file shares, you usually want to have a static address. So it's probably a good idea to go through here and make sure that you're getting that set up correctly so that it's not just pulling a different IP address anytime that it loses power, that the network system decides, hey, this isn't the right setting. So we can look here at this. It's got our gateway setting and it's got our network connection, which is LAN 1. You can configure the DNS for the server. Right now it's got my local DNS set up, which is fine. We can also set up an alternate. So if I wanted .1, that'd be Cloudflare. So we can apply that setting. And then once we do that, we're going to move over here. And you can see a little bit more detail. So I might want to set up my LAN 1 to be a little bit more specific so that it doesn't accidentally grab a different address next time. So I can go out here and click on edit. And instead of saying automatically get a network address, I can say set my network address. You see that it leaves everything filled in already that it was already set. So that's great because then I just click apply. That makes it really easy. I don't have to go through and refill it in. I've always wondered why Windows doesn't do that and make it a little bit easier. You can see once in a while it seems to kind of reset itself. That's probably to apply the network settings, I would guess, but it'd be nice if they could make this not close the window whenever you do that. It is a little bit odd for it to do that, but if we go back over here, you see there's also a LAN 2, so you can actually have two network connections set up and running at the same time. So you could actually get a little bit more overhead going through these different connections if you parallelize that, I imagine, through your network. But right now I'm just using this one connection. And then finally, again, you've got your update and restore. So whenever updates come out, you'll get notifications. Again, I've set this to automatically update for any kind of security updates. Looks like they have an update available. I'm moving data over right now, so I don't want to just run the update, but I'm sure it stops that process and then maybe would pick it back up. But I'm gonna let the data finish moving over, and then I'll go through and run the update in a little bit, and I'll kind of let you guys see what that looks like as well. All right, I completed copying those files over. It took about 35 minutes in the end. It wasn't too terrible. I did have a 50 gig file in that set of files that you probably didn't see. It was down inside of a folder. So it was a pretty large file set, but it took a little bit. Again, everything went fine. It didn't seem to have any problems, nothing like that where it was having issues copying things over. I do have this update available, so I want to click on that. I want to see kind of how this process works here for you guys. So it's going to ask us to log back in because I've been away for a little bit while it was running that copy. Let's go back into the control panel here. So we're going to click on the update button right here. So while the installation is running, I can hear the fan spinning up in the background. So do note that there is some fan noise. I'd say the fan noise is not overbearing. If I was on a Teams meeting or something, I wouldn't be worried about it creating any noise. I have now turned off all of my bigger servers in this room. I had 3 of those Dell Power Edge servers that had really loud fans. So this little device, by comparison, would have been drowned out by those, but because they're not on, I can hear it when it spins up to the loudest setting. But I've got it set to common, so it's going to spin back down after this process is complete, I'm sure. Alright, the update looks like it's finished. I did have to hard reboot this system. Now, I noticed I held in the button, the power button, for about 10 seconds. And instead of just shutting down like most computers would, it actually went into a mode where it seemed to be setting the hard drives and setting any kind of data that it had, and then it shut down. So it actually took about another 25 seconds for it to shut down, but I think that's probably a good thing. They're trying to protect your data in case you do have to do like a hard reboot like that. But the update, I went through the restart process and it just never came back up. So I did do that hard reboot with it, and it seems to be up and running now. So we're going to log in here. I read their agreement. If you don't click that little box when you log in, it pops up with the agreement thing every time. Enable auto redirect HTTPS. So it's kind of up to you if you want to do that. You can definitely do that. It's not a requirement, but remember we looked at that earlier. So it's letting you know there's going to be a self-signed certificate. You just need to click through that box if you're going to turn that on. And then we've got everything else here kind of set up. So we've got a few things that we can do, and we'll go click on that. So it's going to let us know like, hey, this is self-signed cert. That's okay. We know that it's going to be there. And it's going to take us back to the HTTPS version. All right, and we're logged back in, and you can see it comes back up. It looks just about like it did before. I've still got it zoomed up a little bit, so be aware of that. If we go back to 100%, this is what it looks like. I want to go back, and I want to check out their Docker stuff here. So it's going to get your Docker version 1. So if we install it, I mean, do we get anything from it? Yeah, we can install it on either one of those. So it's just looking at our storage spaces there. I'm going to click on install. It's got a nice little user interface that kind of tells you how the installation is going. I like that. That makes it pretty easy to kind of understand what's happening and that your system is working on it. Installation successful. We can open Docker, and it looks like it did a Docker desktop type of install, so not too bad. It's got a little graphical user interface for us here. Again, you can see the CPU, you can see the memory usage that's going on. It tells you how many containers. Of course, we don't have any, how many images. So if we go down to container, and we say new container, you got configuration file or manual creation. Images, okay, so there's quite a few images. Look like they've got Linux server set up to pull some stuff in. Let's check for Vault. Warden, I'm not sure how it's doing its search exactly. Okay, so there's a few. There's not like a ton of containers quite yet. There's qBittorrent, there's Nginx, Ubuntu, so you could run Ubuntu as a Docker container, I guess. You've got transmission, Linux server MB, you've got the Linux server version of Plex, and the Linux server version of Jellyfin. I run Jellyfin on my own NAS, not NAS, but my own server with storage and everything on it, so that's interesting. But yeah, we've got a few things here. The image database. So you've got just tons. This is probably just pulling from Docker, I'm guessing, from the Docker Hub. So if we do Dashy, you'll see here you got Listy93 Dashy, and that's a really nice dashboard system that you can set up. That's the dashboard that I use on most of my systems that you see all the time. If we do home page, and we'll get some of the home page options you've got out there. So they've got a lot of things you can pull. And then local images, of course, whatever images you've downloaded to the local machine, you can see and manage from here as well. So not too bad. Network setups for your Docker networks, of course. And you've got your logs that are working out here, and then you've got management. Now, this is an okay user interface, and it's great. It's a great start. I applaud the guys over at Ugreen for getting this implemented, because as we were looking at it earlier, that did not have any of this stuff for your apps and things. So pretty great. I like that. That's really awesome. you can 100% install other operating systems on this system. Now, I think when you do that, you limit your support capacity from Ugreen, because they're not going to support you in running true NAS on this system. They're not going to support you in running Proxmox on this system. They're not going to provide support for third-party software. What they'll provide support for is this software that it comes with and the software that they're expecting you to be using with it. I'd say if you're just starting out, or if you're somebody who's still a little bit kind of trying to understand how NAS systems work, this is a great way to start. They seem to walk you through most of it. The one thing you definitely have to know is when you go into your storage management, once you set that up, you need to go into your storage management, set it up, and then the next thing you need to do is go into your control panel and set up your sharing and make sure you have your services turned on and everything like that, so that you can actually get some things to show up and move over. So Ugreen started this on a Kickstarter. I think because they've not been in this business before, they're really looking for how much are people going to want something like this. And I mean, you can see they've got a pretty good amount of backing here, which is great. The pricing down here, you can kind of check out and see what they have. So the 2-bay starts around $259. If you go up to the DXP4800, which is the system that I'm reviewing right now, you're looking at $389. Now, this does not include the drives, so don't forget you have to have hard drives to go in these things. This is for the system itself and everything that you saw before I put the hard drives in it. They've got the DXP4800 Plus. I don't think that's the one that I got, but I'd have to go double check. But now you're looking at $454, again, not including hard drives. They've got the NASycn DXP480T Plus. I'm not sure what this does. It looks very different from the others, for sure, but it's $519. And then if you go up to their 6-bay storage, which is pretty nice looking actually, it's $649. So you're talking about 6 bays, you get the operating system, you get all the stuff built into it that you saw before, except now you've got 6 bays of storage space. They've also got this 8-bay storage space, which is hitting right at $1,000, which again, not a terrible price when you start thinking about this. Okay, this is good. So I want to show you their webpage as well. So if you come to their webpage, you're going to see this. The other day I came to their webpage. I don't know what was going on, but the prices were just way out of whack for what was actually here. So they were showing, from $259 here. This was showing like from $9,999. This was showing from like, $9,999. I mean, it was crazy how much these things were looking like they were going for. When I found the Kickstarter, I was like, oh, that's much more realistic pricing. So it looks like they fixed the problem with the page. Maybe it was loading me from the wrong place, but it was showing a dollar sign. So I assume it was, US dollars. Maybe they just had placeholder prices there and they hadn't updated the page yet, but it looks like now they've done that. And I'm on April 10th. This is supposed to go live, I believe, April 15th-ish. So kind of watch for that. But yeah, if you're interested in these are I think this is some great hardware. I don't do a lot of hardware reviews, but my rule is, as long as it can run open source software and firmware, I'm happy to do a hardware review on it. I want to just reiterate thank you to Ugreen for asking me to do this. I think it's a terrific system, and I think it's got a lot of promise. They've already put out an update that's answered a lot of the things that I saw when I initially started using it, so that's awesome. I'm excited to see what they come out with in the future. I think it's going to be really great. And if you're looking for something to get started with, I think this is a pretty cool option. And by the way, I know I didn't show it, but the hardware is expandable. You can open up the hardware and put in more NVMe drives. You can put in more RAM. You can really kind of ramp this thing up as you grow and as your Homelab grows. And again, hard drives can go from huge sizes now. So the 4-bay might be great for you. Then you could grow into the 6-bay, a few years down the road, and then the 8-bay. Maybe you're a business and you're looking for something to back things up. An 8-bay would be a great start. But yeah, really, really great. I think this is awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the journey with us. And I'll talk to you next time.